Hello everybody, welcome back to VegPlot. In the polytunnel today, I was going to plant, I don't know if you remember in that last video, I was going to plant the onions and the garlic straight up on the allotment, but I decided not to do that actually. I decided let's do a little test of the compost that I've got in. So I'll just show you what we've got here and the differences. You'll be quite surprised actually at how different they look. So this is one which I've had in a bag outside actually. It's lovely and dark, isn't it, and rich and pretty fine. And this is the Marshall's compost that I was sent the other day. So it's much drier, which I knew it would be anyway. It's been indoors in a polytunnel, keeping sort of dry and so on in the bag. And the bag says it's very light. And this has been outside, so it's absorbed quite a bit of moisture. But anyway, quite different in texture and so on. So this is farmyard manure, and this is from Westland. And I use this quite a lot, this stuff. I've used it up on the allotment and also in the polytunnel. I use it in the beds and stuff here to top dress the beds. And this is the organic extra Marshall's compost that I was given. Now, I sieved this through using this basket, which I admit isn't very fine, but you can see why this is a top dressing and not really meant for growing things, you know, seeds and so on in. This is really like a soil conditioner. You put it in, it breaks down, and all the food and nutrients in here will feed the soil throughout the season. So not really meant for anything too small, but what I've decided to do is I'm going to mix them up together. So I'm going to blend these two together and then we'll plant up the onions. I've got these red electric onions here, which are looking okay, and we've got some white Senshyu yellow here, which are actually beginning to shoot, so they need to be planted up straight away really. I've also got some broad beans to go in. These are the Sutton, like a dwarf broad bean. And the garlic as well, so I've got quite a few things to plant up. Right, let's mix up these two, see how it blends together, load up the trays and get these things planted. So to start, I'm just sort of using about 50-50 really. I've got slightly more of the sort of wetter Westland horse manure compost, farmyard manure compost, and I'm just going to mix them together. And no special reason, I'm just sort of giving this a go and we'll just see what happens. I think there'll be plenty of food in here, and I know that will benefit both of these, the beans and the onions and the garlic, so I'm hoping this will be just fine. I'm just going to fill these up, take the compost, fill it up, not too tight. I'm not going to push it in too hard because I've got to put the beans and the onions in there, so I think I'm just going to leave that like that for the minute. Just give it a tap down to firm it in. So there's still plenty of things obviously you can be sowing at this time of year. I know it's very tempting, and I am definitely feeling that way this year to actually do a slight slowdown and relax at this time of the year, because obviously it's colder and damp, nothing much is growing, so yeah, so got the same feeling as you probably, and Christmas is just around the corner. Level that off. Right, we'll get some of these onions in. Now I'm going to start with these onion electric. These are red onion electric. Only £4 for 50 is a bit of a bargain really. I just got them from Homebase, local store near us. You can probably get them cheaper elsewhere, to be honest. Yeah, different sizes and things there. It tells you the depths planting, gives you a little measuring chart and things. So yeah, that's quite useful. So as with all these little onions, you want the pointy side up if you haven't done this before, and you see at the bottom you've got all these little roots and so on. Yeah, that's where you want to be popping that into the ground. So also another thing to do is to go through your onions and just check, he says dropping most of them, if any of them are really soft or really small or going mouldy and so on and so forth, but none of these are. If they are, you basically want to just get rid of them, and I'll show you any if I come across any. So yeah, there we go. Just leave all the husky stuff on the base, pop the roots in and just push them in just below the surface so the tip is just pointing out the top. Let's do the same for all of them. And then hopefully later in the year we'll have a lovely crop of red onions. Now the trick with onions is, obviously, like all plants, when they're out in the ground and we have a really sort of dry spell, which we can get, you know, early on in the summer and so on, is to ensure that the onions are kept well watered. If you don't do that, they can shoot and go to seed, which is quite, red onions are quite renowned for doing that. Right, that's the electric onions done, the red ones, so don't forget to put in a label. Just tells you how many and when you sowed them, and also if you've got a record book, don't forget to put this in your record book. Yeah, and then give these a water. So we just put them down there. All right, and then just give them a little sprinkle. Doesn't need to be much. They're not going to dry out really this time of year in here. I'll just keep an eye on them, but I think they'll be fine for a while. Right, so then they can go up on the shelf. A bit close, there we go. Just put that up now. And then that is far enough from these so enough light gets in, and then we'll just keep an eye on those, and yeah, I'll keep you updated to see when they've sprouted. Right, now I want to get on with the next ones, which are the Senshyu yellows. But as I say, yeah, they've really begun to sprout, so I need to get these in straight away. Let's just grab another tray, fill this up. I don't know about you as well, this time of year, I think I was saying that, yeah, we'll tend to slow down a bit and not get so involved in the allotment and garden. But there are plenty of things you can be doing now, apart from sowing things and planting these odd hardy vegetables. I've made a little list somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, tidying up beds and things. That's something which I think is really good to do at this time of year. Beds, paths, anything like that. You know, cutting back the grass around the beds, around the paths, or de-mossing, or you know, get slime on boards and decking boards and things like that. All that sort of stuff you can do this time of year just to make it more manageable for when you come back in the spring. Another thing is, which I don't see people doing very often, and that is harvesting winter crops. You know, so many times you go up the allotment and there are just crops on there going rotten. It's such a shame, you know, cabbages and various brassicas and sprouts and, you know, all sorts of things you see up there. So if you've got crops up on the allotment, it's well worth going up there, checking they're okay, putting in stakes if you've got plants which need staking to prevent windrock, harvesting what you can, that sort of thing. So yeah, well worth going up to the allotment. Don't forget it just because it's winter. So yeah, other things you could be doing up on the allotment. If you're still into digging, you could be digging and turning over the soil in your allotment. I know that no dig is very, very popular these days. Thanks to Charles Dowding. It's well worth doing. If you do no dig, you'll understand. I was saying earlier about when I was doing the electric about squidgy onions. I didn't find any in the electric actually, but look at this one. This is one of the Senshyu yellows, and it's all sort of soft. If you squeeze it, it's completely flat. There's nothing in it at all, and so obviously that doesn't need planting. So yeah, if you've got an allotment and you still do dig, then you'll know that winter time is quite a good time before it gets too waterlogged, if it's not already, or rock hard due to sort of frost and things. It's quite good to get out there and dig the allotment over and incorporate things like horse manure, cow manure, anything like that, just to loosen up the soil. Also gives you a good chance to yeah, do the weeding as I mentioned earlier. So another thing you could be doing on the allotment this time of year is mulching your beds. And if you don't know what mulching is, it's basically when you put on some form of cover, be it man-made or not. I mean, generally, obviously, it's like composts and cow manures or leaf mould or other compost you've had, something really to sort of protect the soil through the winter, because when all the rain comes down it can hit the top of the soil and sort of compact it, flatten it off and so on. So it's quite good if you mulch the soil with like a layer of manure or compost. It can help protect the soil and protect the organisms in there, so you have nice soil when you come back in the spring. Anyway, right, that's the Senshyu yellows. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of compost on the top of these. Just where I've pushed them down, it makes a bit of a dent, so just put a little bit of compost on them, not much, and then we'll water this one in as well. There we go. Right, just stick the label in there and give these a little water as well. And put them up on the shelf like before. There we go. Right, so that's 50 Senshyu yellows and 50 electric reds. Great. Okay, right, let's get these broad beans in. I'm just going to do the broad beans in the same way. Actually, yeah, I mentioned these before. These are from Sutton's. Yeah, purchased these. These are the Sutton. They're an easy to grow dwarf variety. They've got an RHS award for Garden of Merit. You can plant them from November right the way through to July by the looks of it on the back. But yeah, so I'm going to get them going in here. We do have sort of problems with critters up on the allotment and so on, so it might be quite good to get them going indoors first, and then when they've all sprouted, plant them out. So they're quite a decent sized bean. If you haven't grown broad beans before, they're a really decent sized bean, and I think there are 45 in this bag. But yeah, these are like a brownish rusty colour. Sometimes they're like a green. Other jobs you can be doing this time of year, fruit tree pruning. If you haven't done your pruning yet, you can through winter. Now the trees are dormant. Not all fruit trees should be pruned this time of year. I think the best ones to do are like the deciduous ones, like apples, pears, currant bushes like red currants, black currants you do, and also some raspberries you can do as well. You want to avoid doing stone fruit this time of year, because what I mean by stone fruit is, you know, we get a big stone in the middle, like cherries, maybe apricots, things like that. So basically plums. You want to avoid doing those at this time of year, because when you cut the wood it can increase the chance, I think, of silver leaf disease, something like that. So it's best to prune them in the drier months in the year. So you can do pruning fruit trees and currants. You basically want to cut out the dead wood, any overlapping branches which are rubbing, and also sometimes you want to take some out of the middle just to make like a goblet shape, just to get airflow through the plant. Right, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm just, yeah, exactly the same as before. I'll take the beans, and I think with most wide sort of beans like this, the thought is that you plant them on upright, not flat on their side. They're flat on the side. In theory, the thought is that they get very wet and they can rot easier than if they're on their edge. Although I imagine in nature most of them fall flat on their sides. So anyway, to increase germination, the chances, I'm going to do them on their edge. Right, other jobs you can be doing on the allotment at this time of year, let's just bend you back up, is obviously tool maintenance. If you've got secateurs, shears, spades, shovels, forks, hedge cutters, anything like that, you can be cleaning those back. Another job for the allotment, what have I got on my list? Plan next year's crops. Exciting one, isn't it? This time of year. Yeah, get down to the garden centre and plan your seeds and work out what you're going to grow for next year. I think that's actually the best use of time, actually, sometimes this time of year. It's just sitting around with a hot cup of tea and planning out what you're going to do. You can make notes, or you could use a record book, you could just get a bit of paper. In fact, actually on vegplot.uk, my site, if you're a member, you can get access to over 40 different sheets, all free. There's no cost, and you you can use them to plan your allotment, plan your crops and things like that. But yeah, the record book's very good for it too. You can write in what crops you're going to sow, you can plan where they are, you've got growing spaces, all sorts of things. So yeah, check that out. So planning for next year is always a good one. Just going to do exactly the same for the garlic. And I think the garlic this year are mainly white Casablanca. I have grown pink Germador in the past, but they didn't do so well last year, and the best clothes I got off the bulbs last year, because this is the third year from the original ones I purchased. So yeah, just the same as before. Yeah, these are beginning to shoot and curl around the wrong way. So I think they'll sort themselves out. They'll aim for the light. So a few more jobs for the allotment then. Do you grow rhubarb? Now is a good time of year to do a couple of things with rhubarb. If you've got established plants, you can force them. I don't know if you've forced rhubarb before, but it's really, really delicious. It's basically you put a rhubarb forcer. You can get them in a terracotta with a lid. They're very expensive. But if you've got the money, you can do that. Or you can put things like a dustbin over your rhubarb at this time of year. Then come the spring, all the shoots, the stalks, will have been stretching up for the light, and they'll be lovely, sort of a succulent, rich pink colour, similar to the peppermint chard actually, very sort of a pale pink. The thing with forcing rhubarb is not to do it every single year to the same plant, because you'll weaken it. So basically what I do, I've got 3 rhubarb plants, and so I'll force one year, let the other 2 just grow normally, and then we'll have some lovely fresh force rhubarb. And then the next year I move the bin to the next one, so that one will recover and that one will still be fine, and we'll force this one, and then I'll move the bin in the next year. So it's like a 3-year rotation really, and that's a good way to do it. The other thing with rhubarb you can do at this time of year is to split it to get more of it. And so basically what you do is on the clumps you'll notice there are sort of pointy bits growing, and they usually have, I can't remember the word, but like a growth point tip on the end. And you can just take a sharp spade and chop this off. So you've got a great big clump with a bit of root on it. And this time of year is a good time to do that, and sort of transplant it into another growing space, and yeah, you'll have another clump of rhubarb growing away quite happily next year. The thing is, I think, not to harvest from that clump in the first year, because it really needs to settle in. So you basically want to leave it for a year and then harvest a few stalks next year. Just depends how well it does, I suppose. But yeah, you don't want to sort of stress it. Right, that's great. I'm going to do another tray as well, but yeah, this should do for the moment. Okay, further jobs for the allotment that you can be doing at this time of year. Now, obviously a lot of you have probably got crops up on the allotment at the moment, or in your gardens, wherever, in your veg patch. And what with all the cold, horrid weather coming, yeah, after we had snow on the moors, actually, to tell you the truth. We had snow at my workplace as well. Yeah, so basically the thing is, you want to protect the plants that you've got in your garden, your veggie plants and your crops and things, so that they stand the best chance of producing really good crops for you. So you can use things like netting, fleeces, things can be staked. As I said earlier, you want to keep things from sort of windrock. A lot of brassicas don't like windrock, so like sprouts and things, you might need to stake them. But yeah, other plants, oh look at this, you've got exactly the right number. Yeah, other plants, yeah, you just might need to give some wind protection and things like that, because like broad beans, if you've got them in the ground, they might need protecting a bit. Yeah, so protecting plants that you've got up in the plot is really worth doing. So it's worth a little trip up to the allotment just to see what you've got growing, and keep an eye on them and make sure they're covered over and protected if they need it. Right, so that's that one done. So that, all in all, we've got about 100, just over 100 garlic for next year. So they're all good. So put these down here to water. Just water this in. And the last job you can be doing this time of year on the allotment or in your garden is planting out fruit trees and bushes, especially bare root fruit trees and bushes. And now is a good time to buy them, actually, or order them, because they're just a lot cheaper. And you'll find in the spring everybody's got that urge to start growing and planting, and so prices go up and scarcity becomes a thing. You know, if you really want that lovely fruit tree or bush, quite often you'll find it's sold. Yeah, in the spring. So if you're thinking to put fruit trees or fruit bushes on your allotment, then now's a good time to check out the websites and catalogues and things and order them in. So yeah, you can plant bare root fruit trees, bushes, currants, that sort of thing over the coming months. Thanks for watching. I hope that's helpful. Before you go, I will put a list, a free download for this, these 10 things, if you like, on my website. Yeah, head over to veggieplot.uk and snag yourself a freebie. Okay, that's been Chris at Veggieplot. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.